Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is One Piece East Blue Saga Arlong Park Arc, Episode 36, Survive, the Mother Belmare and Nami's Family. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in this episode. So at the start of the episode, we pick up where the last one left off with Arlong on his way to Belmare's house because he saw the smoke from the chimney. He knocks on the door. She realizes something isn't right and comes out guns a-blazing. However, because he is a fishman, she is no match for him and she ends up with her arm mangled. By the time the villagers get there, Genzo arrives and he informs her of basically what Arlong has decided is necessary. That is to say, everybody has to pay for their lives, and that there is a cost for both adults and children. And he cradles her, asking her how much she has. Meanwhile, the doctor of the village intercepts Nami and Nojiko, who are coming up to basically tell them that we know you're poor, we know Belmare cannot afford to pay for all of your lives. You two need to go out on the sea, escape the island. It's harsh to send you out there when you're children, but otherwise Belmare is going to die. And of course this upsets the children, but Nojiko does decide that that's what they'll do, and Nami, despite saying no at first and being reluctant, also decides that that's something that they can do. However, Belmare, after handing over the money as Arlong and everybody are leaving, when she is scot-free and about to be able to live, decides that she ultimately cannot deny the fact that she has a family, and so calls Arlong back, saying that the people she paid for are her daughters, not herself. And this then leads Nojiko and Nami to come running over to her. The villagers then arrive and they try to fight to save her, but they are very quickly defeated by Arlong's men, and Belmare does end up passing away at Arlong's hands, which is, of course, regrettable. And then one of the fishermen, I think it's Hachi who finds it, finds the chart that Nami drew, and Arlong, seeing the talent in it, decides to take her with them, and so Nami is then kidnapped. The villagers all gather around Genzo, and they're basically like, Nami's one of our own, we can't abandon a child, let's go and save her. But this, of course, is when Nami comes back to the village and reveals that she now has a tattoo showing that she is now part of Arlong's crew, and that he gave her all this money, and that if the result of living well like Belmare is dying like Belmare, then she prefers to not live well and is basically banished from the village. She runs to Belmare's grave. That's where Nojiko finds her, and that's where she reveals the deal she made with Arlong, that she can buy Kokoyashi Village for 100 million berry, and once she has that amount, then she's free of him, but until then she'll be part of his crew and draw the maps and sea charts for him. And then we get some various flashbacks of her doing so, of facing pirates, bringing home amounts, saying that she's going to gather it little by little, and by the time they're adults, they'll all be free. And then we return back to the present, where Nojiko finishes the story to Zoro, who's napping, Usopp, who is the only one who seems to have listened carefully, and then Sanji, who's just more upset at the injustice done to his beloved Nami than anything else, and ends up punished for it. But then we see Genzo walking through the village with the Marines, and then Nami, who's woken up from her nap, comes out of the house, sees the Marines and Genzo, and that is when the Marines reveal that they received a tip that she is a thief who's been stealing from pirates, and since she stole from pirates, she's not going to be arrested, but they are going to confiscate all of the money she has earned to date, as it was stolen property, and it will now belong to the government, and that is the place where we end this episode. And now that we have been reminded what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode. We'll rank on our mostly objective ranking list first, which uses set values to determine the score, followed by the personal ranking, which uses my opinion to determine the score. So for our mostly objective rank values, we'll start as always with the positives. So we have a +2 for our single arc main character development, which of course is the origin of Genzo's scars, which he gets while trying to defend Nami and Belmare and prevent Nami's kidnapping. We then have 3 positive points, bringing us up to 5 for the successful emotional impact of Belmare's death, which I'll admit always gets me just a little bit. So, obviously, in the case of a death, the successful emotional impact is if you feel sadness at the death, it is successful. I felt sadness, therefore successful. And then last but not least, we have a +4, bringing us up to 9 out of 10 for the multi-arc main character development. And this, of course, is Nami losing her mother, then Nami being kidnapped, Nami agreeing to join Orlong's crew in exchange for the deal, and then Nami letting Nojiko know about the deal, and then, of course, her flashbacks to her early thievery ways when she decided to start stealing from pirates. So basically, the fleshing out of the remainder of her backstory. But there was negative points, and that is a -2 points, and that's for the negative messaging or behavior. And I put this down as various forms of betrayal, because we have obviously the Doctor and Genzo making a plan behind their back to betray Nami and Nojiko in favor of Belmare and have them leave the island and give up their family as 2 orphans, which, like, 2 kids out on the sea, like, I don't think that would have ended well, so I'd consider that a bit of a betrayal. We had then betrayal of Nami to the village, which of course is a fake betrayal. She's really on their side, but she leads them to believe that she has betrayed them. And then we also, of course, have the ultimate betrayal of Arlong tipping off the government so that he doesn't technically break his promise, because had she been able to bring him 100 million berries, he would have kept his word, except, wouldn't you know it, it's been confiscated. That's not on him. But, we now have our Marines who have been bought by Arlong, which, given how long she's been a part of the crew, I'm pretty sure she would know he was Arlong's pet Marine, coming to the village to confiscate her treasure. So, again, a betrayal. So, multiple forms of betrayal. And that then leaves us with a 7 out of 10 for our mostly objective ranking list. So, in our arc rankings so far, we have in first the most wicked man of East Blue, Fishman Pirate Arlong, Usopp's death, Luffy, yet to land, the Witch of Kokoyashi Village, Arlong's female officer. This episode comes in fourth, Survive, the Mother Belmare and Nami's family. Fifth, Reunited, Usopp tells Nami's true story, and in sixth we have the Hidden Past, female fighter Belmare. Now, for my personal rankings, I did agree with the objective ranking in this case, so spoilers, I gave it a 7 out of 10. And for much the same reasons, obviously Belmare's death was successful. There were various forms of betrayal in the episode. some things that I didn't like them trying to send two young children alone on a boat into the ocean to fend for themselves, was pretty harsh in favor of Belmare, but to be fair, Belmare grew up with them, but at the same time, it's like, so have Nami and Nojiko. Nami was an infant when she came, so it's like, I feel like that sort of prioritizing, and especially when they're prioritizing the adult over the children, a bit questionable for me, but ultimately that doesn't end up being a problem because Belmare decides that she cannot betray her family and does claim them and state that she paid for them, but of course this does end up with her death. Now, here's my viewpoint on this. For plot purposes, I understand the direction they went and the reason they went in that direction. But I also feel like it probably could have been possible, given that Nami and Najiko's names were not anywhere on the register, that the register said that Belmare was single with no family, and having never given birth or been married, etc. Like, Arlong literally reads the village register. Nami and Najiko aren't on it, so as long as they are hidden away whenever any fishmen come by, I don't see why all three of them couldn't have lived. Where Belmare pays for herself, Nami and Nojiko, they could just be village orphans. They had no funds. They were in the forest. They aren't on the register because, maybe they live in the forest or something. They could come up with a lie, a story or something as to why they're not noted anywhere. It should they be caught, but then they also could be not caught. I mean, the fishmen were literally walking away. They did not meet Nojiko or Nami. Once they had left the village, maybe they show up from time to time to collect the funds, but my understanding, at least from what we've been shown so far in the present day, is that the fishmen don't necessarily just journey to the village for fun, but rather, for a purpose. So they're not there all the time, so I don't see how, especially given their disdain for humans in general, how they would have not been able to keep Nami and Nojiko's secret while Belmare pays her way. I feel like there was a solution where they all three could have lived, but again, for plot purposes, I understand why they went the route of having her die, and it was more meaningful with her passing, the fact that she passed because she couldn't abandon or betray her family, and especially since the previous episode, the whole conflict with Nami and Belmare was that Nami was saying like how they weren't real family because they weren't blood related, and here Belmare is, with the loss of her life, confirming once and for all they are family even if they don't share blood, and that Belmare will not turn her back on her family or declare that they are not family, even if it means she ends up passing on, which adds to that emotional impact. So I understand why they went that direction, but I feel like there also were other options that necessarily that tragedy didn't have to occur, is all I'm saying. So I did take a little bit of points for that. Obviously, there's the betrayal from Arlong at the end, though that hasn't really come to full fruition, as the Marines have just arrived. They have not yet found or taken the treasure. But their arrival and what the Marines say makes it pretty clear that's what's happening. So that's our cliffhanger. Kind of a pointless cliffhanger in my opinion because it's pretty obvious what's going to happen next, even if it was your first watch through and not a rewatch. So, plus we learned a lot more about the characters. We learned more about Genzo. We learned more about Nami's deal and her origins. So that got fleshed out. Enjoyed that. There also was a bit of comedy with Luffy being rather taken with the pinwheel on Genzo's hat. So that was one little bit of comedy in an otherwise pretty serious episode, which I appreciated. Sanji, once again, it's part of his character, but he does take the womanizing just a little too far, which sucks because otherwise he'd probably be my favorite character because other than that womanizing thing, he is a pretty suave sort of character, always in the suit, with the kicks, with the chivalry, with all of that. It's like if he just didn't go that one step too far, he would have been the best character. But all characters need their flaws, and of course he does get punched by Nojiko for his exuberance in wanting to help Nami, as the whole point of her telling them this backstory was so that they would not help Nami, which I think is silly because, I mean, it's a sob story. Of course, if they feel any empathy, they're going to want to help her even more than they were before, and they already wanted to help her. So I feel like that was bound to backfire, but I digress. All in all, some positives, some negatives. I think 7's fair because it was overall a very good episode. And that brings our list to the most wicked men of East Blue, Fisherman Pirate Arlong in first place, Usopp's death, Luffy yet to land in second. Reunited, Usopp tells Nami's true story. This episode is coming in fourth, Survive, the Mother Bell Mare and Nami's family. Fifth, the Witch of Kokoyashi Village, Arlong's female officer. And then in sixth place, we have the Hidden Past, female fighter Bell Mare. Bringing us now to the saga ranking so far, and this is where we are ranking each of the arcs within the saga. So we have, so far in our mostly objective ranking, the Romance Dawn arc at 86.67%, Orangetown arc in second, 76%, Baretti arc, 68.33%, and Syrup Village arc so far in fourth, 64%. Arlong Park arc has 42 out of a possible 150 so far for its total. On the personal ranking, we have in first place the Orangetown arc, or as I fondly call it, Buggy's arc, introduction arc, at 74%. Romance Dawn arc in second, which is 66.67%. Baretti arc in third, 52.5%. Syrup Village arc currently is in fourth for me as well at 49%. And the Arlong Park arc is at 41 out of a possible 150. Bringing us now to our final segment, which is the series ranking so far. This is where we will be ranking each of the sagas against each other. And so far on the mostly objective ranking, the East Blue Saga has a score of 25 out of 80. And on the personal ranking side, the East Blue Saga so far has 14 out of 80. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Piece East Blue Saga Arlong Park Arc, Episode 36, Survive, the Mother Bell Mare and Nami's Family. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.